Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Hard Claim with Viva Sam. I'm Sam, and this is a show where we talk to people who play Blood on the Clocktower and get their player perspective of the game. And joining us for this week's episode from the Grimoire is Evil Steve. Welcome.
Hey Sam, thanks for having me. There might have been some miscommunication with my agent. I don't actually play Blood on the Clocktower.
We'll make it work.
I watch a lot of it. I run a lot of it, but as people will attest, I've never played a game.
Well, I'm in the same boat, but that didn't stop me from doing my own episodes, so it's all good.
Fair. No, I mean I'm exaggerating, but yes. Thanks for having me. I do love Blood on the Clocktower. I do love playing Blood on the Clocktower, even though I don't play as much as I probably should.
Yeah, like I said, I'm in that same boat. And before we get to our normal starting question, I do have to ask, why are you evil?
Oh, okay, that's actually a good story, right? So, Steve, as Sam probably is a very generic name within the world, right? Like there are lots and lots of Steves in this world. So, you always need something to stand out from the crowd just a little bit. And there was a game that we played. So when I first got into Clocktower, small group of friends, like usually, you have 8, 9 people that are trying out the game. Wouldn't you know it? There just happened to be one other Steve in the group. So we had 2 Steves, and we couldn't both be Steve. It didn't make sense. So we played a game where I said, if I win, I get to be good Steve, and if I lose, then I'll be evil Steve. I did end up. Honestly, I think I won that game, but I liked the Ring of Evil Steve a little better because it fit my play style more. And from that moment on, I became Evil Steve within our little Clocktower group. And then that has just persisted here. Like, a year later, I'm still Evil Steve.
Fantastic. That's why I like Viva Sam, because I've played with multiple other Sams. I know Samantha plays on the Grimoire sometimes. The Viva Sam just kind of also sets that apart. So yeah, I feel you there.
You need something to set you apart. Steve won't cut it. So, and it doesn't hurt that in all these like social deduction games, I would much rather be evil almost every time rather than good. So,
all right. Well, we'll definitely dive into that here pretty soon. But first, we'll start out with this is your script, a Xenophobia. I have sent out some characters. You've drawn the Sweetheart Token.
Oh no.
Bangu is the only demon on this script. So with that in mind, if this is day one, we're chatting right at the start of the day, what would you claim?
Okay, so some of you might have seen this script before. It's not super well known, but we did do a very recent revision on this one. And Village Idiot is actually one of the newer characters. It didn't exist when this script was originally made and submitted for the Plague Doctor script contest, but I feel like it fit the idea of the script so well that recently I've added it on. So since I am an outsider and I would like to become the Fangu at some point, I'm not going to tell people that I am an outsider. In fact, I'm just going to hide amongst the Village Idiots for the time being and claim Village Idiot.
Village Idiot? Did you see somebody as good or evil?
So since I'm not trying to cause too much chaos yet because I want to blend in, and since most people at this point in the game are good, I am going to pick a random person in the circle and tell, like, I'll just say, like, seat 6, and I am going to lie and say that I saw them as good because that seems more believable.
All right. Yeah, I like that strategy a lot. All right, so Blood on the Clocktower, when did you discover it? How long ago, and how did that come about?
So first learned about it about a year and a half ago, just over a year and a half ago. So some of you who have maybe watched our content have seen Mike on our streams on our server. He's the one that actually got me into it. Him and his wife Courtney. So Mike and I knew each other from some Dungeons and Dragons Pathfinder streaming projects that I had done. He runs some server hosting software that was sponsoring our stream. So we became friends through that. And then one day he was kind of like, hey, have you seen this game called Blood in the Clocktower? And I was like, I haven't, but I have a huge history of playing like social deduction games. So I was very intrigued, right? I come from a long line of werewolf mafia level play by post forums
Hmm.
uh, that go back like 10 years, right? So when I saw that there was something that could be played in real time online, I was like basically hooked instantly. So he invited me to a game. I played. I think I think honestly they might have thrown me into like Sex and Violence within my first night of playing the game. I think I
Oh,
did
no.
one TB and then went to S&V, and I drew the Snake Charmer, and it was over for me. At that point, I was sold on the game.
What about that sold it for you?
The fact that it could do something that I hadn't seen really before in a lot of the Mafia games I played, the fact that I could start good and then become evil and like do it in a way where the odds are stacked against me, because generally speaking, when you become evil, it's very hard to win from that point. As the
Mhm.
Snake Charmer becoming evil, it's not the best, but for town it is. So in a way,
Right.
it's bad for you. So being able to get that Snake Charmer, become evil, and somehow still slip through and win, it was just the ultimate high that I could expect from the game. And I was like, man, and this is just scratching the surface. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more craziness coming down the road. Uh, Turns out I wouldn't say I peaked, but I might have like hit some really craziness right off the bat just because I was thrown into SMV so fast.
And was that? Did you say that was your very first game, or did you have a game of Trouble Brewing before that?
We did play. I mean, it. I believe we played at least one game of Trouble Brewing before that because I had to get the general sense of it. But like most people in like the modern age, I consumed a decent amount of content online before I actually stepped into the game. So I didn't come in completely blind. I came in having at least binged through like the entirety of the No Rules Barred video series and things like that. So I think I only did one TV before jumping in, and I felt pretty comfortable with that.
So you mentioned playing a lot of like Werewolf and Mafia. For you, what are the differences between those games and Blood on the Clocktower? That I don't know if you lean towards Blood on the Clocktower or if you even play Mafia or Werewolf anymore. But what do you think about the differences between those?
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't played like a proper game of like Werewolf Mafia in quite a while. Probably at least 5 6 years now. Um,
Okay.
Blood in the Clock Tower, once I learned about it, it supersedes it. It like improves on everything that I would wished it would improved on without touching the stuff that I liked. So like I don't see any reason to ever go back. The one caveat I'll say is, Blood in the Clock Tower can be a very heavy investment for a group of people. If I'm not playing with people that are as into it as me, sometimes I might feel overwhelmed. And a group like that where it's just a couple people sitting around a table, I might pull out like one night Ultimate Werewolf because that's a really fun small puzzle that kind of scratches the same itch that I get from an hour and a half long game. But that being said, no, like Clock Tower is where it's at. For sure, that is where I'd rather spend my time these days.
And
Did I
so more
answer your
specific.
question? I actually forget what the question was now.
No, yeah, that's good. I was kind of curious too, like what specifically do you think makes a Clock Tower, supersede those other games?
So the number one biggest thing that I didn't really like about Werewolf is the fact that death really spells the end. People like dying, like if you're evil, or let's just say you're good, but you have to kill someone at night in order to win the game, right? And it's more than just what's good for the game. There's like a layer of like feeling bad, like I am like cutting this person out of the game for like the next period of time. If you're playing in person, they're going to sit there bored for like the next hour, and if you're playing on a forum post over like a week or two, they're out of the game for the next week or two, and you feel a little bad about that level of it. But also the fact that when they die, who they are is revealed, right? Like for sure that they are this role. They were good, they were evil, and that always felt a little lackluster to me. We used to play with like what was called like the last gasp rule, which is like when you die, you get one last message to the world, right? About whatever you want it to be. And the fact that there's no ambiguity in if they were good or evil really made that hard for me to like really gel well, right? I just
Mhm.
felt it felt not fair to the evil or not fair to good, depending on which way the information went. However, in Blood in the Clock Tower, dying is just part of like everyday strategy, right? Like I don't necessarily mind dying if I'm evil because it helps sell my world that I
Mhm.
actually am telling the truth even when I'm lying, or vice versa. There's very little hard confirmation in Blood in the Clock Tower, and it allows the game to exist in this weird nebulous gray space where
Mhm.
things aren't always as they appear at any time, and that is my favorite part about Blood in the Clock Tower and stuff that I would never be able to get playing Werewolf, for instance.
Well, they have the tagline "Death is not the end."
Yes, death is not the end. We could do some script competitions on our server, and there's always like some variation of death is not the end in the scripts that get submitted, right? Because it's a common theme within the game.
Right.
There's a lot of people that don't like in Mafia. You could never have a Raven Keeper that gets information by dying, right? Like that would never exist in a game like that because once you're
Right.
dead, you're out. So it opens up so much more design space too.
Yeah, and Trouble Brewing's definitely built that way to encourage players that death can be information. It can be good even as a good player to die. A virgin, Raven Keeper, a soldier wouldn't die getting attacked at night, but they want to bait that kill. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see that a lot. Like, I think that was one of the things that really, when I first played Trouble Bring, even after watching it for a bit, once I played it and I was in one of those positions where, okay, honestly, like getting executed here is probably good because then the Undertaker is going to confirm me, and then
Hmm.
they're going to confirm that my information's like healthy, and then that's going to help get people on my side, right? So yeah, like maybe I want to die. But then there's also that realization at some point that comes along, which is like, we can't just execute good people that want to prove themselves. At some point, we got to start pulling the trigger and getting these like
Right.
suspicious people out of here, the people that don't mess with it. And that, like, the fact that there's no, well, at least in that I've seen, I know there's some people out there that might disagree. The fact that there's no hard and fast best way to play Clock Tower, mathematically proven this is what you should do at every step along the way, I find it fun that you can just let it ride and try to get people on your side. And if there is an answer to what the best way to play Clock Tower is, I never want to hear it. I don't. I don't want to know it. I want to know for fun.
Do you have a estimate about how much you've played the game altogether?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question. I might be able to have. Okay, I'm gonna do something real quick. So our community, right, the Grim, we play a lot of games together, and we play we have one stream a week. We do at least 2 or 3 nights of games a week. So I'm not involved in all of them, but there is an app called the Clock Tracker app, right?
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of it. A lot of people in the community use it. I do not have the patience to go and track all my games. I know there's people out there that run spreadsheets that use the Clock Tracker app and are very obsessive about that, but I don't. However, anytime I'm in a game or on a stream game or in the thing, somebody enters it and tags me. So I'm gonna load it up real quick, and we're gonna see how many games
Okay.
are in my profile.
It's interesting too because a lot of people, a lot of guests that I've had have been playing for a few years. A lot of them kind of discovered at the same time I did, which is how I know them. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of think about how much you might have played the game and stuff over just, you said like a year and a half you've been doing this game?
Yes, and this Clock Tracker app doesn't go back to the beginning. It looks like the first time anyone entered a game in the Clock Tracker app tagging me was July 12th of 2023, so almost exactly a year ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's July as of
In
this
this
recording. Yeah.
Yeah, it's July right now, a little bit later in July. However, I have 84 games on my profile within that year, which is probably rookie numbers compared to a lot of people out there, right? The interesting thing is that I was storyteller in 71 of the 84, and I was a player in 13 out of the 84.
All right.
Now, this definitely is skewed to stream games because the stream stuff gets put in. We've streamed every week for a year at least. Has it been fully a year? We didn't stream full time until I think it's been about 5 months since we've been streaming full time, and that's 2 stream games a week at least. Which, yeah, 83 seems about right. This doesn't track games where I'm running just games for people on a server or dropping into the thing. It doesn't track any of the in-person stuff. I've been trying to go to do more in-person stuff in the local, like in Southern, because I live in Southern California. Great weather, tons of Clocktower communities. So I've been headed down to like some of the Orange County games, and they get like 30 plus people every Tuesday night showing up at like
Wow.
a food court in the strip mall. It's crazy how like dedicated they are out there. And then another game we went and played on the weekend at a park. Just pull out a park, throw up some easy ups, bring some chairs, and hang out. It was a lot of fun. So I'm gonna say, based on the 84 numbers on Clock Tracker, the handful of games I've done, I would say the Clock Tracker is probably most of it. So at least 100 to 120 games in the last year alone.
Okay. And you mentioned playing in person, which was going to be the next thing I was going to ask you about. So you do get to play in person sometimes. I'm curious what you think about the differences between playing online and playing in person.
It's weird because it's clearly the same game, but there is so much nuance and difference that happens in an online game versus an offline game. So it's no surprise, I think, given that I run like a really big online clock tower community, almost I would say 90+% of my games and my game experience all comes from the online client. So I'm a little skewed towards that direction.
Right.
But I would say online, the it's like the perfection of information, or the people are very precise with tracking everything. Everyone's got a notepad open. Everyone's got like, very detailed notes about who did what or what happened or what people said. People will sit there and like track every nomination. They will track who voted on every vote, like stuff like that. That like I just don't see that happening in person very often. In person, you know, someone says something, I file it away in my head. I'm not writing it on a piece of paper. I'm not writing
Right.
my information down so that I have a picture perfect, accurate reference to what's happened like 2 days ago. So uh, online it feels more driven by who said what and documented. And when I play in person, it's just vibes. It's like kickback, it's vibes. It's like I feel like that person's evil. Why? It just feels right, you know? And everyone's like, yeah, I feel that. Yeah, for sure. Let's get him. And online, that would never fly. Online, it's like, you know, I can never get away with saying something one day and then just hoping people forgot I said it 2 days later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think in person, the visual cues or body language and stuff is also kind of similar. To, you talk about vibes, and I feel like that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. Body language, I think, plays big, but in online, because you can't have 12 people, or how many people are in the game, right? We have 12 seats here, 12 people sitting around each other. I can't just like lean over and whisper to my neighbor online. We have to go to a private room separate from everyone else that isolates us. So I'm not picking up on body language on the other side of the room. I'm not
Right.
picking up on raised voices or whispers or laughs. It feels very isolated. It's like a series of one-on-one conversations. And in person, I feel like it's more likely to have multiple people in a conversation, or just stay in my seat and sit back and watch it, or leaning over and whispering to my neighbor. It becomes
Mm-hmm.
more social in a way in person that I think the game was just designed with that in mind, honestly.
Yeah.
Like
And they're
the
still
game,
designing the game with that in mind, primarily.
yeah. Yeah, so the online works. It's a lot of fun. It's the primary way I play, but like if you haven't yet, you really got to try the game online or offline. You got to try it in person because it's so wild how many of these little things that you can't even quantify just really, brings it to life even more.
I've said this multiple times in the past, but for myself, playing this game online and running it online easily made it my favorite game of all time, hands down. Then playing it in person's even better.
I agree. It's a lot more work in person though. I don't know. Have you agree with that, or I'm crazy in that? But like the
Yeah.
app is so convenient, and like uh, here's a good anecdote, sort of, right? Since I play online, most of my playtime, most of my storytelling was all done online. Other than just running, Trouble Brewing, Bad Moon Rising, Sex and Violets, the first time I was going to run a custom script
Mm.
was at the Las Vegas Clocktower Con last year. Right? I had never run a custom script in person before.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So I said, I'm going to run some script. I think we have a script that we run on our server called You Slay Me, made by Mark, who's one of our members. He was at the Clocktower Convention. It's one of our like signature scripts for our server. So I'm going to run this at the event. I went to the room. I checked out a Grim with all the experimental tokens because I don't own the experimental tokens. I wasn't a Kickstarter pledger. So I've got the base game and that's it, right? So then I'm sitting here with a huge collection of all these tokens, and I realize I have to find every single token for each role I need. I have to go to the base game and pull it out. And then I got to find the reminder tokens too. It was so much work that I
Yeah.
almost didn't want to do it. In fact, I think what happened is I ended up using a set that somebody else had already put together because it was just so much work. So, that was a rude awakening for me to realize just how easy I had it online. Because online, you
Yeah.
hit this, I load the script, and I play. You don't have to think of the logistics of having the real life components put together. And I was able to learn that on the fly at a convention where I was supposed to run the game in just about 2 hours. So, yay me.
Yeah, I had a similar experience at a Clocktower Con last year in 2023. Putting together extension cord, which I ran several times, and then if you want to run Trouble Brewing or Sex and Violence afterwards, you got to put everything back and set everything back. So it does sound like TPI plans on having something where you can buy a set of tokens in a token box. I don't know how much that'll cost, but I'm very intrigued by that to make it a little easier to run customs in person. I'm curious how that'll play out.
So I think anything they can do to make it easier is definitely welcome. I think, luckily the base 3 scripts are the best no, I don't think many people argue with that. They're just so well designed and put together that it's probably where I would spend most of my time playing, given the chance anyways. But there is this interesting hybrid world that I saw when I went and played in Irvine, which was they use some of the digital tools to do Grim management. So instead of having, the Grim with the tokens, it's all run off someone's mobile phone, right? Like, I forget the name of the app. I'm sure everyone knows it. I'm just like
Pocket
out of the loop.
Grimoire.
There you go, Pocket Grim. Yeah. So we were able to get our tokens that way, and not have to deal with the actual physical aspect of it. I don't know. It seems to me like it'd be hard to run from that, given that you have all the reminder tokens. I don't know how well that works, but it is interesting to see how the community comes together to fulfill like the needs, right? Like the game exists, great, go buy it. It's worth your money, but the tools, the Blood in the Clock Tower script database website is a godsend. Like, I wouldn't want to I just can go there and find the scripts I want to run without having to manage my own JSON collection, right? Or the clock tracker app, people that put together a way to share your games and your win rate. And I can now definitively say when I play Blood in the Clock Tower, my most common role is the imp, which feels great to say. And things like that. So the community itself comes together and does a lot of cool stuff. And the Grim is a good example of that, right? We saw a need in the community, which is to offer a space a little more organized than just like the madness that is the official Patreon. And so we created a space catered to new people that want to learn the game, and we started offering games, and then we've grown since then. So basically what I'm saying is the Clock Tower community is awesome and everyone does cool work. I guess I just hitched myself to to pull us in. But I don't do a lot. All the hard work on our server comes from a lot of the other administrators and moderators who do so much good work in our Discord server.
Well, this is where I shout out Nina, who does so much work for me here with these videos. So yeah, it's nice when people come together and make things happen that we can't. I wouldn't be able to do it individually, at least.
Yes, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that make a lot of the stream stuff we do possible. I'm lucky enough to somehow have become the face just because I knew how to stream. So I turned on the computer and I started streaming at the start, and I somehow have become. I'm still doing it, right? I'm trying to help other people do it, but someone like I was talking about Courtney earlier. Courtney, she does the thumbnails for our YouTube videos every week. She does so much of the art and things. Like without that happening, like the videos wouldn't look nearly as good as they do because I have like almost zero artistic bone in my body. It's just one thing I don't have. So Courtney does things like that. We have a whole production crew that help come up with cool script ideas or themed weeks. We do themed streams, things like that. And so yes, Nina, you are you and those who aren't necessarily out in front, you guys are all well loved in my book. So
absolutely. All right, so you prefer playing evil, it sounds like.
I do.
I guess the question is why?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Why evil? I've never actually analyzed it too closely.
Well, so I know for like my end, I prefer being good. Just for me, it's more interesting to try to figure out the puzzle. For evil, you're the one trying to throw off the puzzle, which is still fun. But I know at least that's my perspective of it. I don't know if you kind of maybe think of it the same way or not.
Yeah, if you think about it in terms of that, like I do, when I'm good, I love solving the puzzle. I think when I'm evil, it's more the socialness of pulling one over on everyone. Like at the end of the game, I feel like if you're good and you win at the end of the game, it's like, oh, we did it. We solved the puzzle. We high five each other. And everyone kind of, I don't know, expects that to happen. But when evil is able to pull it off, and then you look across the circle and Mike is sitting there looking at me with that look on his face, like, you bastard, how dare you lie to me? And I can know that I like had someone in the palm of my hands and like managed to like make them trust me and then get away with it. Like that feeling is something I don't get in life. It's like I'm not that kind of person in general. So using the game as an outlet to like be evil in a fun way, I think that really helps, and that's why I like it the most.
And then still be friends afterwards, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So especially like I definitely try to make leave it in the game. Like anything I lie about is definitely for the game. I try not to gloat at the end of it. It's just in the moment I want to like rub it in their face maybe for like 30 seconds and then we move on to the next game, right? Like I hopefully they feel the same way, and maybe they'll come on here and they won't. But yes, I think there is some element of giving ourselves a fun, safe place to kind of have that interaction with each other, within the context of a single game. Yeah, on a more intellectual level, going back to solving the puzzle, like being able to be evil, like there's different levels. First, you're right. Good players are trying to solve the puzzle, and evil people are trying to like mess up the puzzle. But there is a level of like outsmarting someone where it's you're giving misinformation as evil, but in a smart enough way to really be almost impossible to disprove.
Mm-hmm.
And to be good and solve the puzzle is actually a little easier than to be evil and to give such false information that you make people solve the wrong puzzle. And so hitting that peak is, my like favorite thing. And I guess after that, it just, then it's good outsmarting the evil, outsmarting the good. It can go forever. But no, I think if I really think about it, it just feels better and it feels harder to win as evil in most cases. And so when I can pull that off, I like it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because, again, I do prefer being good, but winning as evil is the most exhilarating thing. my first video, my first Clocktower video on this channel was my first time playing online, and I was an imp, and I did end up winning that game, and I feel like I rode that high for like 2 weeks.
You got to. It's just that's what keeps us coming back.
Yeah. Are there any particular kind of characters you like to play? Do you prefer like more passive characters or something that has a little bit more to do? What do you like there?
My favorite character, hands down, you can see right above me, the Baron. The Baron, when I first started this game, I looked at it and I was like, man, I thought there were no like boring characters in Clocktower, right? Because that was the selling point. It's like there's no characters that do nothing. And then you look at the Baron and you're like, well, they don't really do anything. They modify the game, but they might as well have no power, right? They're not doing anything fun. Which lasted a couple of games until you realize that the Baron is freedom from responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to protect a super powerful ability like poisoning someone or being the Scarlet Woman, and now I got to be good all the time because I might become the demon later. I'm like the safety net. No, the Baron is just literally freedom to do whatever you want, and there's no wrong way to play it. And once I realized that, I think the Baron has definitely become my favorite character to be on any script. There might be some changes to that. I mean, there's been some cool characters coming out, I gotta say. But yes, passive Baron is my number one favorite of all time. However, I will qualify this by saying if I'm gonna, like, outside of the Baron, which is the only passive character I think I really like, I definitely really enjoy shenanigan-based characters. People that have to do stuff publicly in order for them to function. Things like the juggler, things like the gossip, things like the Alsahir. These sort of roles are a lot of fun to be, and being able to like gossip something that would solve the game if it's correct, and putting the evil team in like a very dangerous position of what do I do about that. There's very little that can come close to that. That's the closest that good can come to being evil and having like fun, I think. So Baron number one, close second, all the shenanigan characters, and then Snake Charmer is a close third after that.
Gotcha. How do you feel about being a demon? I know a lot of people who prefer being evil, or if they're evil, they prefer being a minion. Do you prefer to be a minion or a demon?
Minion. Minion's less responsibility.
Yeah.
Less glory in it as well, but definitely less responsibility. Yeah. When you're the demon, everyone else on your team kind of relies on you, and nobody wants to have that pressure. Nobody wants that pressure. Maybe some people out there do. I'm not one of them. Since I have built this entire persona about being Evil Steve, I know that it's going to come down at some point. I'm going to get nominated, and someone's going to say, well, his name's Evil Steve. And then I got to somehow fend that off every game. When you play with like your friends and it happens, like we've gotten past that meta, right? But when you go to like a convention or you're playing it with like people at one of these like in-person events that I don't go to a lot, it's always, he's evil, let's vote for him. And at some point, there's only so many defenses you can have for that, and it's going to get you nailed more often. Like even once or twice, it's enough to like ruin a game. So if I'm a demon with no escape mechanism, then that's probably the least my least favorite evil to be.
That's fair. It does remind me of a small side story where one year at Gen Con, this is like my really early in my board gaming journey, but I played a game of Werewolf in Gen Con, and I was a first player voted out because I had a beard.
Because you had a beard, that was it?
Yep. Oh, it was like, he has a beard like a werewolf, so that was literally it. I didn't play much more Werewolf after that.
Yeah, and then especially Werewolf, because then you're just out of the game for the rest of it. You don't even get to have fun.
Right.
So Clocktower, you can keep going.
I stood around watching for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'll go do something else now.
Yeah. So I think part of this is also my own doing because I try to play the game thinking about like the game as a whole, like long term strategy. So even though each individual game's its own thing, it's anyone that tells you that they won't meta someone over the long term is lying, just even subconsciously. Like, Steve plays this way. This person has a tell. I
Hmm.
know exactly when this person's evil or good because they always do X, Y, Z. People develop these little things. So my long term strategy is to always basically be suspicious all the time. So if I'm ever playing in a game with you, and you can meta me, this is fine. If I'm playing in a game with you and I am trying to convince you the hardest that I am good, I'm probably not. The only time I would be if it's a role like the Saint or something where like the game hinges on me, like we're in Final Three or something like that. Sure, then I'm all for it. But I would do that evil or good, right? But like I generally would rather be suspicious as a good player, so that way when I am evil, it doesn't stick out as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's probably a pretty common strategy, but it
Yeah,
is generally how I've tried to play the game. So, you know, I'll get
talking about it.
executed on day one as the imp. Sometimes it's fine. I got a Scarlet Woman. I will try really hard as the recluse to. I won't tell anyone I'm the recluse because, well, you know, it's better to be suspicious just in case I might want to bluff recluse when I'm evil later. Keep people on
Right.
their toes. Always trying to win the game. Don't get me wrong. I want to win no matter what. I just don't want to. I don't need to convince you that I am like 100% good all the time. I just don't.
About long term metas, and of course yeah, I know we both have players who played hundreds of games together, so the meta is kind of hard to avoid. Some are hopefully they're healthy metas, but we've talked with Nina lately about how whenever she's good, she's okay with being executed day one, and whenever she's evil, she fights to survive. And she's been trying to battle that lately, trying to stay alive when she's good and being okay to be executed when evil. So I don't know, it's just kind of funny to see metas kind of shift, over time. I think.
Yeah. Like sometimes you gotta think about the game in a bigger scale. Now, if you're the
Yeah.
kind of person that's just learning on the clock tower or whatever, no, don't even think about it. But if you're the kind of person that plays repeatedly, especially with the same people over and over, then
Hmm.
think about how you can throw people off the scent in a grander scale of things, right? Keep people on their toes.
Yeah, and it's also just part of the fun, especially when you're really kind of almost intimately familiar with the game. You just kind of have freedom to. I always like to quote Milk from Grim Scenarios. Try things. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but yeah, try things. Always like
Yeah,
that philosophy.
that's a great philosophy to have, and almost anything can work if you commit hard enough.
Mhm. All right, so you said you like the base scripts, which I'm always happy to hear. Which of the base scripts do you think's your favorite?
Uh, might surprise people because I think it's kind of regarded as maybe. Oh man, now you're got me second guessing. My gut reaction is to say Bad Moon Rising,
Okay.
but if you were to like really press me, I would say Trouble Brewing is like the best script. And if I was forced to only play one script for the rest of time, it would be Trouble Brewing. However, I still feel like Bad Moon Rising is a little bit my favorite, and it doesn't get played as much I think as Trouble Brewing and S&V and in my circles. It's got a little bit of a bad reputation. I know it's one of those scripts where the storyteller has a lot more sway on how much fun the players can have, and there
Yeah.
is a lot that they can do to make it a not fun experience versus a fun experience. So I think that's why it gets such a bad rap. But I do love the puzzles that Bad Moon Rising offers. I think yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Um.
weird though because it doesn't have my favorite character Baron or my third favorite character Snake Charmer. In fact, it has Gossip, I suppose, which is one of my
Mhm.
favorite. So why do I like a script that doesn't have my favorite characters? I don't know. Hmm. I don't know. I do. I like it
Huh?
though.
It's just how it goes sometimes, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make Sex and Violence your least favorite base script?
I guess so. I mean, it's like if you had like they're still like above every other script that exists out there, right? So in a way, uh yeah, it would have to be Bad Moon Rising, edging out Trouble Brewing the slightest bit, and then S&V is a close third. I'm trying to like I S&V has some of my craziest moments. I had
Mhm.
a very particular moment that pretty early in my Clocktower career that really, you know, it's always going to stick with me. But I was the philosopher, and as every good chaotic philosopher does, I went Snake Charmer because that's what you do. I already told you Snake Charmer was one of my favorite characters, so when I have the opportunity to become it, of course I'm taking it. Then I successfully Snake Charmed the demon, and then I was woken up later that night and told that I was the Snake Charmer again, and then I died. I woke up dead, and so did the demon that I Snake Charmed the night before. And I went to the demon, and I was like, "Look, I don't know what happened, but I know you were the demon, and so was I, and now I'm not." And we both just like tried to solve what happened, and we couldn't. For the rest of the game, we could not figure out what happened. Uh, and it wasn't until the end of the game I learned that there was another snake charmer out there. And after I drunk them as a philosopher, but the minute I became the demon, I was no longer drunking them, and they stole it right back from me. So there was two swaps in the same night. And I didn't even consider that as a possibility. It was wild.
That's fun. Since we're talking about
So,
Sex and Violence, I'm curious how you feel about Madness, which is something that's heavily focused on in that script.
man, you're going for the hard hitting questions, right? Madness is an interesting one. It is probably the least well defined thing in Clock Tower. It's 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 really it's one thing to like run Madness if you're talking about like a convention pickup game or people that are new to the game. It's very clear, right? Like I am I'm the mutant. I can't tell people I'm an outsider, so I just won't. I'll just be like, I'm something. But what happens in a game when like just telling people like, the code word like I am the snake charmer and I have always been the snake charmer. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like
Mhm.
suddenly everyone knows, right? But you can't really call people out on it because they're not really breaking the rules per se. So,
Well, I will say I do think the rules actually do specifically call out the wink, wink.
okay, well, you don't literally wink, wink, but if
Right.
over the course of multiple games you always say
Yeah.
I am the blank and I've always been the blank and that's code for I'm the mutant, then then when you as a storyteller do execute for that, people can have bad feelings about it because it becomes like, well, I didn't actually say that I was an outsider. It's like, no, but you very heavily implied it, right? Um, so madness is one thing that I personally have had a hard time arbitrating. We've had on a lot of our YouTube videos, there's been some fairly controversial madness kills, especially relating to Harpy, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Generally speaking, with a mutant, it's almost 9 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 100 I wouldn't execute a mutant for breaking madness because it's almost like a powerful confirmation, right? Like the only way
Right.
I would do it is if I'm really trying to build some other world or
Hmm.
something weird is going on, right? But like on S&V, if you execute a mutant that comes through the mutant, you're usually helping good. So
Hmm.
that's not usually what an outsider wants to do. So Harpy's an evil controlled one. So now you're putting this ability on par with like a poisoner or a scarlet woman or something that's supposed to have an effect on the game. And so you need to like be a little more heavy-handed with madness breaks in terms of a harpy because it is an evil player's power. So, you know, I think we had an instance where somebody basically went around all day. I didn't see a single private chat where they inferred that the person that they were mad about was evil, and then out of nowhere they didn't even nominate them. I think somebody else ended up doing the nominating, and they just happened to throw their hand up silently as a vote on that.
Right.
And I think we executed the two people for breaking madness in that case. And then the comments online were just like, "How could you do that? They voted on him. Like, clearly they were adhering to madness." And then some people were like, "No, no, no, it was this, it was that." It was a release script night. Ben Burns was there with me. We were both running the game, and I think we both came to the same independent conclusion that the person should die. So we did it. But it's also something that needs an experienced storyteller touch. So I think I don't know where I come down on Menace. I honestly almost feel like it doesn't make Clocktower better? Question mark. I get what it's trying to do, and when people lean into the madness, and there are people that will just have fun with it, like instead of like trying to
All
like,
right.
oh yeah, I'm definitely under madness. I'm definitely Sarah Novus mad. More like just they literally come in and say, I'm this and I got an evil on this person, we need to kill them, right? They lean into the madness even though it's not optimal for the way that they should be playing, but it feels like it adheres to the spirit of madness for more. It's more fun to play with a person that does it like that. And I think that's what the intent of the game maybe was supposed to be. But I don't think I've ever really fallen in love with the madness character. Maybe I'm a terrible person for saying that.
That's fair. I mean, the opinion's valid. I always just look
Yeah.
at it as a form of misinformation, basically. Or, if they don't go with the misinformation, then there might be a quote unquote penalty. In terms of determining if somebody's breaking madness, I've started kind of coming around to thinking that, let's take Harvey Madness, for example. Um, if you don't tell town that somebody's mad, if player A is supposed to be mad that player B is evil, if you ask town who player A thinks is evil, if town doesn't think that they think player B is evil, then they're not really being mad. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if they're doing nothing but just putting a hand up, I mean, that sounds like a very valid reason to kill for Harpy Madness.
Yeah, because that's even like people say, well, if you nominate, that's like the bare minimum. But then the meta just becomes, if you're evil, you do random nominations on the person you're mad about, and just everyone just kind of goes, oh, well, they're Harpy mad. And I think if at any point in the game, if there hasn't been a Harpy kill, but like town knows that there's a Harpy in play, just based on like social reads, then you probably should have Harpy killed someone before that, because you're just kind of like hampering evil at that point.
Yeah.
But then doing it, actually pulling the trigger on the Harvey Madness, just confirms it. So I don't know.
It's so dependent on context. So I usually always say if you're just thinking about it, people will put a hypothetical online. It's like, oh, is this breaking madness, or would you execute this? Blah blah. And I'm like, usually the problem with such questions is everybody reading that question puts in their own context. And depending on what your context is, it's breaking madness or it's not breaking madness, and it makes it really hard to answer the question. Usually somebody says, is this situation breaking madness? And I say, are they trying to convince town that something's true? And if it is, then they're being mad. If it's not, then they're not. And it's hard to say without being there and seeing it. And, it's an interesting mechanic, but I know it can be a little divisive. Yeah.
It's the mechanic that leads to the most bad feelings, for sure. Like people that are someone generally, not always, but more often than not, or more than any other mechanic, like nobody's like, I was the drunk. Well, that's I'm so mad at you. Like it's more like, oh, I was the drunk. Oh, okay, interesting. But like madness, it's more like, well, why did I get killed on madness? Like why that? It's one that can lead to the most bad feelings, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I remember I don't know. I guess I try to just kind of be an open mind. I remember once on the TPI stream I got executed, and it was legitimately the hardest I've ever tried to be mad as it because I was supposed to be mad as I think the alchemist or something like that. So I'm trying to pretend I have an ability, and then I'm trying to test like a witch kill, and it didn't work, and I got executed. And I'm like, oh, I was really trying, but um, for me, the important part was the storyteller. Even though I disagreed with their decision, I know that they're trying their best, and that's just how they read the situation, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just move on, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I totally get that though.
Yeah, more than any other mechanic, it's the one that comes closest to crossing the line. I think, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this next question is somewhat unique to you, but I've kind of similar to me. We're both streamers. We're community leaders. So something I thought would be interesting to ask is, we're very humble too.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
I'm curious what kind of
community leaders being humble.
I'm curious what kind of expectations you put on other players, because I know it's something we always have to be mindful about, because we're putting this out on the internet, and I've had situations I've had to deal with. I don't know what you've had to deal with, but my guess is over a year and a half, you probably had to deal with something at some point in time. And I know it's something I'm always trying to constantly improve on. So yeah, I'm just curious what kind of expectations you place on other players, especially for the Grimoire.
Yeah. Now, are we talking in context of like stream games, people that are on our stream representing us, or are we talking more also just like if I'm just running a game within our server and it's not for content, it's for just a bunch of people getting together and having like a little bit of fun, because those are actually two vastly different things that I think people don't always understand. There is a big difference between playing Clocktower for content and playing Clocktower for yourself.
I find it interesting because I really strive, at least for myself, to keep them pretty much the same.
Interesting.
But really, just in general, though, I guess however
Yeah.
The Grimoire is basically a group I always like to point people to as, hey, you can go to this group and they'll be really nice to you and they'll be friendly and they're a great experience. And I feel like it comes down to the expectations you place on players.
Correct. So then I'll answer this first in context of like what we expect out of our general server players. Anyone that comes to our server is going to expect a vibe with our style of game, right? And so in that context, one of our big things is basically never telling someone else how they should play the game. Like the minute you start dictating how somebody else should play the game or what somebody else should do, then you're probably in the wrong. Like you could discuss options and maybe at the end of a game like talk about, oh, what options did we have, and talk through them. But like to say like, why didn't you do X, it was objectively the right thing to do, is almost never gonna fly on our server, right? We want people to have the fun and the room to do something crazy and do something fun and make a memorable experience out of it, right? So that's number one of our biggest things on our server. I think more than you would find on the official or just random pickup games on the app, or at a convention, is the vibe of there's no wrong way to play the game. Like you said before, just try something and see what happens, and learn and move on. Like, if you messed up one game of Clocktower, oh no, move on with it. Like, have fun, laugh, find out what works, what doesn't, move on. So that's the biggest thing. The second biggest thing I think is our games on our server and our community. It's all about people having fun and not about winning. Like, winning and losing is secondary to having fun time. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't always be playing to win, because the end game for anyone in a game like this, you should always be trying to win, especially in a team-based game where 10 other people are on your side. You have to try to win, but that doesn't mean you have to play what everyone thinks is the best way to play the game. You just gotta put winning secondary to everyone walking away having a good time. And those are probably the biggest things. I'm real quick, because we do have a sort of what's the word for it? Like a server rules, like our mission statement, right?
Right.
So our mission statement includes promoting and inviting community, which is the number one thing. We want to be inviting. We don't want someone to come to our group and get rubbed the wrong way and walk away going, well, there's those people are kind of like a-holes. Like some of us are, but hopefully in a fun way, you know, hopefully in a fun way. Like we want we want people to like feel like they belong no matter what. Number one. Safe space, like, we don't want anyone to come to our community and feel like they will ever be picked on or yelled at or discriminated against for like any reason. And so those two combined with our ability to or our focus on creating fun games where people can play whichever way they feel is best, I think has made a fun community. And our community has put a lot of focus on beginner players. Like I think a lot they're kind of forgotten because people get into the game and they forget that they were ever a beginner. So having a fun, safe space where everyone who's introducing a new player to the game is extra mindful about how they are getting their first experience is so important to creating someone that comes back for more. Versus somebody who tries it and then says, this game's not for me. I'm out of here. Everyone like told me what I was supposed to do. They told me the correct way to play. They told me who I should vote. That creates a not fun experience for somebody for the first time. And so all of those things combined, I think, is working for us because we are growing like crazy. We have so many new players that come in. Like, thanks for referring people to us because we do try to be a good onboarding spot for people to learn the game because so many people come in, they're like, I've watched the game online, but I don't know how to start. I'm really nervous about starting. And we go the extra mile to make it inviting and welcoming and give like a special place for people to have that first experience. And we literally just crossed 1,500 members on our server last
Amazing.
night. So that's a lot of people. No, we're not quite as high as like the official Discord or the unofficial, but we're getting there. We're getting on it. So that's the number one thing I think with the Grim, letting people play how they want and not ever dictating how somebody else plays. Now to go the extra mile on stream, I tell people that when you're on stream, playing, like, realize that you're not playing for yourself as much as you're playing for an audience, right? Like a play that's bigger, that's more fun to watch. We kind of encourage that to happen a little more on our streamed games than we would on our not streamed games. Like, obviously, do what you want whenever. Like, that's our core belief. But the players on stream will do things a little extra in the hopes that it pays off for big, silly moments. And sometimes it does, and it makes really good content. And sometimes it doesn't, which can also make for good content.
Right.
So that's the difference with streamers. I put a little bit extra emphasis on the audience being like, we play with 12 people on our streams, so the audience is really that 13th person in the circle, and we try to keep them in mind with everything that we do, at least in some level.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I always appreciate that you all are good with new players. That's why you're like one of two servers I point people to. I always wish I could do more with new players, but I'm a much smaller operation. And my own Clocktower is usually limited to my Friday games, and so I just lean towards those being more towards intermediate and experienced players. Beginners are welcome, but not going to be quite as ideal. But I really appreciate there's servers out there that I can point to.
Graduate to Viva La Sans. once you got the basics. Yeah, I can't take too much credit for that. So like Tiffy and Becca and Bryant and Mike, and McKay, they take the lead on a lot of the managing the beginner things. Like Tiffy especially has been really big and instrumental in onboarding new players, and she's really made it her mission to make them feel like a safe and welcome into the community, and she's done a great job. So good job, Tiffy.
All right, well, let's do some multiple choice. Because that's always fun.
I'll give really quick answers because I know you got a short time schedule.
It's all good. So we'll start with Poppy Grower, Atheist, or Amnesiac.
I'm just giving the one that I like, or just is it just like a it's just like a gut like it's
It's
kind of a psychological test?
just what however you want to take it.
Poppygar.
Popular. You like a? Do you not mind playing as evil in a popular game?
It makes it gives evil a little bit of a puzzle to solve, which I think is fun.
Mhm.
I also feel like it's a little overrated, not overrated, but it's a little it's not as detrimental to the evil team to not know each other. I mean, depends on the powers you have. Obviously, if you're like a witch or something or a godfather, you got to be careful. But
Right.
in general, no, I like the vibes it brings to games. Right, just having it on the script makes people act differently, which I like.
Yeah. Since it brought up, how do you feel about atheists? Because I know that can be a interesting character for some people.
I went through the normal path of like, wow, the atheist is so cool. I can't wait to play the atheist. To immediately went, I do not like the atheist. I never want to have the atheist on a script. If there's an atheist script, I'm probably not going to play it. And then I came around full circle and I put it on my 123 not it script because it fits really well on that script. And so generally, no, atheist is not one of my favorite things, but uh, it can create fun, memorable moments. I just think it's overused by people that put it on scripts where it doesn't necessarily belong. I don't like when it's just there to make the puzzle harder and give evil like another way to just claim atheist. I like when it has a more specific purpose than it usually has.
That makes sense. All right. Damsel, golem, or ogre?
Hmm. I'll tell you right away. It's between damsel and ogre, and I think I'm going to pick damsel.
Okay. You like
Damsel.
Do you like? Have you ever been to Damsel?
Yes, I've been the damsel and I've been the huntsman. I've been on both sides of it, and it's always a fun like mini thing. Um, I love an outsider that can't openly be an outsider,
Mm.
and damsel fits that with the thing in the back of your mind of like you need to find a way to die without being too obvious about why you're trying to find a way to die, and the whole game can end instantly. All that comes together to make a really fun character for sure. Ogre's a close second because you can become evil, but damsel, damsel, yeah.
All right. Next question: Mazephiles, widow, or vizier?
Vizier.
Okay. Do you like the Outdid Evil gameplay?
Yes, outed
Of
evil
course.
when you get to be the villain and you get to sit there in town and everyone has to like acknowledge you and realize that you're evil and there's no ambiguity about it. It's a little bit freeing and if I yeah, Vizier 100%. No question on that one.
You change your name to Outdid Evil, Steve.
Outed Evil Steve. There we go. Coming soon.
All right, one more of these. We'll do the three L's: Leviathan, Leech, or Legion.
Leech.
Okay, because you can be Outdid Evil
Yeah.
again.
No, well, I mean you can, and that's always a fun one. I do like Leviathan. I think Leviathan gets a lot of hate because it makes a very different style of game. But I do really like the style of game it makes. I think most people just don't adjust to it well. Like they still try to hoard information for the last day instead of like sharing more earlier, and it leads to like, well, we don't have enough time to solve this. Well, yeah, that's on you. But Leech does something unique, which creates a situation where townsfolk now want to die,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't usually happen too often. Most townsfolk are like okay dying, but having a reason for townsfolk to be like, okay, yeah, we should kill me in case on the Leech host is a very interesting angle that doesn't even require the Leech to be in the game, but just on the script. And so for that reason, I do like the way that Leech tweaks the game a little bit. What was the third L? I forget the third L.
Legion.
Leech Leviathan. Legion. Uh, Legion is it's just there. It's fine. It's fun. Uh, it's one of my least favorite evils to probably run for and or be, because you know it's up to the storyteller to do so much work, because you got to make a believable story about why people dying and this and
Yeah.
that, and not leave the count right. Yeah, but Leech is just fun.
Yeah, Legion's definitely a challenging one to run, and some people like that gameplay of flipping the game on its head. Some people don't. Yeah, it's always an interesting one to kind of ask about.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it, but Leech has a special place. Plus, Leech is a base. No, Leech is not a base 3. Leech is an experimental. I
Right.
can't wait to see where it ends up on like what's home script's going to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, one final question. So, looking at the script here, what character would you like to be in real life?
Oh, so hmm. Well, I do like magic. I do like, oddly, I do love like tricks and card tricks and things like that. So magician would be right up there. But yeah, how can I choose any other character than the Baron? I get to wear an awesome hat. I get to own I get to be rich and probably own some land somewhere and be in charge of people. Like, honestly, that's that's perfect for me. So yes, 100%. I am picking the Baron to be in real life.
So before we do some plugs, let's just do this real quick. Where are you seated? Oh, you're up here. So we'll say, hey, now you're evil and you are the Fengu.
Oh yes.
With that in mind, what would you like to plug?
Oh, that's it. I just become the Fengu and I win life. All
Yep.
right.
That's how it works in the game, right?
That's how it works in Xenophobia. Yeah, I mean, you're always trying to become the Fengu.
Right.
Most people are. Let's see what to plug. Number one, our Discord server, join.thegrim.gg, is the number one place to connect with our community, with me, with all the rest of us on the Grimoire. We run games Sunday afternoon, Wednesday nights. We run lots of lobbies, 2-3 lobbies every night, just to support all the people that we have playing. Come play with us there. We've grown our European games significantly, and there's a European game on Thursday nights, or Thursday night European time. It's like Thursday afternoon here in the States. But that's been growing really big. We got like Saturday games that kind of work on both an Australian and a European server time. So no matter what your time zone is, come join our Discord server. Again, join.thegrim.gg. That's the number one place to do that. While you're at it, swing by our Twitch channel at live.thegrim.gg or our YouTube channel at watch.thegrim.gg. Just keep it simple. Watch, live, join.thegrim.gg. You're good to go. Shout out to Mike for managing all of that, so we don't have to remember all kinds of crazy URLs. Just works. We stream live every Monday night. From about 7 p.m. Pacific to somewhere between 10 and 11 p.m. Pacific. And if that's too late for you, I know it is for you, Sam, then we have VODs that go up instantly on both YouTube and Twitch. We stream live to both at the same time, so there's always some cool content to watch. And we do, our biggest thing right now is our new character releases. So every time they release a new character, we are running a special stream to showcase that new character right after it goes live. So it's not a preview or anything, but like characters announced, it goes live on the TPI stream. And then as soon as that ends, Ben jumps on our game, runs the game for us. And for him, it's like 5-6 in the morning. That guy's crazy. And we play that character, and none of us know what it is until it's announced on stream. And then we play it that night, and you get to see it showcased with a bunch of, first timers checking it out, which is a lot of fun. So definitely check those out. That's the biggest plug. Come hang out with me at Las Vegas Clocktower Con. I'm gonna have a whole room there dedicated to the Grimoire, and we're gonna run games out of it. And you have a chance to come play with me and tell me why I'm wrong about Madness, or why why I think it's the best character in the game, or any of the other terrible wrong things I said. Or you can just nominate me and say his name's Evil Steve. He must be evil, and have a good story to tell your friends. So yeah, come check us out there.
that's really it. That's my plugs. I'll keep it short and sweet.
And we'll put all those links down in the description, and just in case anybody can't remember those links.
I try to keep it simple, but yes,
yeah,
I'm in the description too.
All right, well, Evil Steve, thank you for joining us. It was great to have you.
Thank you, Viva La Sam, for having me. I had a lot of fun here. Hopefully you can edit this down into something that's at least mildly entertaining for somebody to listen to. Good luck, Nina.
I'm sure people like it. But all right, thank you all for watching this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, take care.